Such a good mood because I have some announcement to make. I quit. Yeah, I'm done. No, but don't you feel like that sometimes? Anybody? Anybody feel like it's going, I'm out. I'm done. I quit. No matter what it is, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's marriage, whether it's your faith. Sometimes things get to be, so difficult that you just think, I'm just done. So I had a couple of examples. How many remember back in 2018, there was a player for the Buffalo Bills, and his name was Vontae Davis. He was a cornerback. Anybody remember this? You remember it? So at halftime, he goes in at halftime, and he right in the middle of the game, right? This isn't preseason or anything. This is right in the middle of the season. He quits. He does. He goes in, he takes off his uniform, gets a shower, puts on his street clothes. He comes out after halftime, shakes people's hands, he says, I'm done, I'm out, I quit. Just like that, right? He just absolutely quits at halftime of a game. It's on TV. And then I found another story. Let me get this guy's name. This is fantastic. Slater. And Slater was a flight attendant for JetBlue. How many know that flight attendants, they really go through it, don't they? Have you ever been on a plane when, they have somebody complaining and stuff like that? And so I guess after, thousands of flights, he had enough. And so he's kind of became a little bit of a folk hero. You should check him out online. It's so funny. The plane lands, and you know how they say, please stay seated till the plane comes to a complete stop. And some of you don't listen to that. Anybody don't listen? I don't want to know. Some of you listen. You wait, you know what I mean? Here's the thing. You're sitting halfway back or all the way back, and people are standing up getting their stuff, and you've got a long wait. Just sit down, And so they try to get people to do that. Well, somebody got up, and they were giving him a hard time and everything, and so he had enough. So he gets on the PA system and he said, "That's it. I've had enough." He had a few choice words for the people that stood up, and he said, "I quit." And he goes out of the cart and grabs a beer out of the cart, and he releases the emergency ramp, and boom, he's gone. He's out. He said, "I'm done." And listen, so how many of you sometimes feel like, Avante Davis or what's this guy's name? You should look him up. His name is Slater. How many of you have ever felt like one of these guys? I have. Listen, sometimes, most of the time, I feel like I have the greatest job in the world. But sometimes I just feel like I want out. Like I just want to quit. And so today I want to talk about, we're looking at this fruit of the Spirit, and so let's just read that verse. Hopefully you know it. But the fruit of the Spirit is what you may know: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control. Gentleness and self-control. So today we're talking about faithfulness. How do you not quit? How do you not give up? I mean, no matter what it is, I think we've all in our life have gone through a period in a certain area where you just had enough. And you feel like giving up, you feel like quitting. How do you carry on? Whether it's quit school, whether it's quit work, quit your faith, quit your sobriety, your ministry, your marriage, right? The question is, how do we not quit? How do we hang in there? How do we not quit at halftime, right? How do we hang in there for the second half? How do we not, pull the emergency slide and just bail out? So let's talk about faithfulness for a minute, okay? This was actually it started out being a difficult message for me to put together, because I was thinking, I was thinking all different kind of things on faithfulness and everything, and I think I got it kind of narrowed down. What we're going to do is we're going to look at, kind of describe it a little bit, then we're going to look at a case study in the Bible on faithfulness. I hope you know the story. It's about Moses in Numbers chapters 11 through 16. Matter of fact, I recommend that you go back after today's message and you read the story of Moses, okay, in that part of the Bible. So let's talk about faithfulness. Faithfulness, I think, is a combination of two qualities. And what I'd like to do is, now there are a lot of people I can use as an example. I'm not going to choose anybody here, but I've chosen my sister, my older sister, Valerie. She's married, been married for a long time. They got married when they were 18. They have 5 kids, 4 boys and a girl. And they're all married now, and everyone except for the girl, except for my niece Brittany, they all have kids. They have multiple kids and everything. And so my sister is a great example for me of what faithfulness is. And so these two qualities of faithfulness. The first one is this. If you're taking notes, you want to write this down, is day-to-day dependability. Day-to-day dependability. And I lived with my sister and brother-in-law for a while up in State College, PA, whenever I was younger, and I was working for my brother-in-law building a house, and I lived with them, and I saw my sister. Now, like many moms, like I'm sure a lot of the moms here are the same way, but I just remember my sister, like every morning, right, getting up with the kids, way before the kids would get up, making breakfast for them, taking care of them, lunches, whatever it was. And I'll never forget, every day after school, she would always have some sort of snack ready for them. When they got home from school, she was there to greet them. And I think of her when I think of this idea of day-to-day dependability, like every day. Hopefully you're like that. But do you know people like that in your life? You just know day in and day out, they are there. You can count on it. So that's maybe the first quality of what faithfulness is. The second, if day-to-day dependability is one aspect of faithfulness, the second one then certainly is long-term commitment. I think of my sister, all her kids they're married and they're spread out, they're doing their job, but she's still there for them. Any call that she gets, anything that she's needed for, she's there. My one nephew is a doctor in Ohio, and he finished his fellowship, moved to Ohio. They moved, and they bought a house, and they had a baby, all in the same week. And so, like my sister, took off her job, drove out there, and was there, right? Even still now, this long-term commitment. There is a great quote by, how many know who Eugene Peterson is? Anybody know? Eugene Peterson is a pastor, but he also wrote the Message Bible. You know the Message? Everybody know that? So it's a translation of the Bible. So it's a paraphrase, but I love reading it because it's common language and so forth. And he said this. He said this: faithfulness is a long obedience in the same direction. Isn't that good? Don't you like that? Faithfulness is a long obedience in the same direction. Like many of these virtues, I think we live in a world today, our society today, our culture today. All these things seem to be like countercultural, don't you think? Like faithfulness, you can hardly count on anybody anymore for anything, right? It seems like everybody's out there kind of just keeping their options open just in case, I'm not going to commit, I can't commit, I'm not sure, just in case something better comes along, right? Again, now, I'm not thinking of any of you in anything I say today, so don't get offended, okay? I watched a comedian the other day talk about being offended. This is a little side note. This has nothing to do with this message, but he said, getting offended, he said, so what? You get offended. Get over it. Offended doesn't do anything. He said, a comedian, if you're at a comedy show and somebody goes in and says, he said something about the Lord and I got offended. I said, so what? It doesn't do anything to you. It's not like you woke up the next day with leprosy, right? I mean, nothing happens if you get offended. So listen, don't get offended that this isn't about you unless you think it's about you. Then hopefully, right? But it seems like transient lifestyle is the order of the day, right? No one's committed anymore to anything. I don't know what the statistic is. I read, I forget what it was, but something about people graduate from college and go to a job, and they change within a short period of time, right? Changing jobs all the time. How many remember back when you were a kid, your parents, right? They got a job at 18, and they retired from that job at 65, right? I mean, this idea of faithful. Now, I'm not saying that just because you move or whatever, you change jobs for a better job. I'm not talking necessarily about that, but it's just this feeling, right? Of no one commits to anything anymore. It doesn't feel like there's any kind of long-term commitments or day-to-day dependability. So people seem to like to live with their options open in case something better comes along. It's like for some reason this word commitment strikes fear in the hearts of men and women today. You know, commitment. Oh man, commitment, right? I don't want to commit to anything. You know, so, but what I want to talk about is start out the first part of the message. Then we'll look at a case study. Let's talk about why be faithful? Why be faithful? So let's talk about the benefits of faithfulness. All right. Proverbs 28:20 says this. Now, just listen. A faithful man. Now, remember, Proverbs are not promises, are they? No. What are they? Proverbs are these short, pithy little sayings that are founded in wisdom and in truth. Okay, that's what they are. Like when your kids are young and you say, "Listen, study hard and you get good grades." Are you guaranteeing them good grades? You can't guarantee anything. But you're saying, listen, if you study, the chances are, the probability is, if you study hard, you'll get better grades than if you didn't. Isn't that true? And that's what the Proverbs are. They're not promises, but they are these wise sayings. And so the Proverbs say this, 28:20. A faithful man will abound in blessings. Now, let me just stop right there. And you always have to clarify things, right? So abound in blessings. Unfortunately, when that word is used, you have something in your mind, a connotation of blessing, right? Blessings being, good things just coming my way. I went to my mailbox and there was a check in there from the government for $1,400. So whatever, right? Oh, what a blessing, or something like that. But just blessings are these blessings can be just anything in your life that adds value to you, right? And so this proverb says this: a faithful man, we'll talk about this, we'll unpack this a little bit. A faithful man will abound in blessings, but he who makes haste to be rich will not go unpunished. Will not go unpunished. So the contrast here is between what? Faithfulness and haste. Here's a quote by Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett said this: no matter how much talent one possesses, some things just take time. Isn't that true? No matter how much talent you have, some things just take time. Hey, Michelle and I were watching the other day. How many ever seen the TV show King of Queens? You ever see that? I love that show. So King of Queens, he comes home one day with a surprise bonus from work at $3,000. And man, they're so excited. And she said, "What are we going to do with it?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to take it and put it in the bank." She goes, "In the bank? Like, how boring is that?" And so she works for some lawyers, and they're always investing money. So the whole show is about them taking this $3,000 and investing it in this stock, right? That all these lawyers at work are investing in. And so they take it and they invest it. And so what are they doing like every hour? You ever invest in a stock? Like every hour looking at the stock. They go, "Oh, where is it now?" They go up, down, whatever. And he can't stand it, right? He is just a nervous Nelly, and after a couple days, like she said, It started out at 3. This is before they invested. Started at 3 and went to 6. And we could have doubled our money, right? We put the $3,000 in there. So they invested at 6. 2 days later, where was it? Well, it was at 3. And so they lost half their money. So he's freaking out and everything. And so what does he want to do? Pull it out. So they pull it out. What happens? It goes up. And the whole show is about this, right? But the point is, sometimes you have to wait. You have to wait. You have to be patient. Go back to Michelle's message, right? But there's this contrast here between faithfulness and haste. So let's look at 3 benefits real quick. 3 benefits to faithfulness. Because I don't know how you're feeling about this right now. I don't know how even that word is hitting you. Faithfulness. Is he saying we're not faithful? Or am I faithful? Am I faithful? Well, where? Where do I have to be faithful? And all this kind of stuff. And, oh, man, I blew it there or whatever. Just hold tight, okay? Let's look at some benefits of faithfulness. So don't race through your mind now of where you are or where you aren't or who is or who isn't. Don't worry about that right now. Let's just work our way through it. Fair enough? Work our way through it, and we'll talk about it. And then, because here's the deal. This is what I want to tell you. Your life is about right now and your future. Isn't that true? Anything that's happened in your past is irrelevant to your life except from where you learned from it. So don't go back and beat yourself up over where maybe I wasn't or whatever. Is he talking about this? No, I'm talking about you right now, okay? Right now. About faithfulness, the benefits of faithfulness for now and for our futures, regardless of our past, right? Isn't that a good thing though, right? We'll learn from that. We're not going to dwell on that. It's not going to define us. So we'll talk about 3 benefits of faithfulness. The first one is this. Faithfulness makes healthy growth possible. Healthy growth possible. If you want to grow in your life, in any area, it takes faithfulness. Pick, just in your mind, just pick any goal. Doesn't matter what it is. Whether it's work, whether it's your marriage, whether it's relationships, whether it's your health. So right now, everybody knows my father died when I was 17. He was 44, had a massive heart attack. That's number one. His dad, before him, had a stroke, heart problem still, right? Heart problem affected the brain, and he died in his 60s, like 61, I think. My dad died at 44. My youngest brother died at 48, heart attack. My grandmother on my dad's side had heart problems. My brother Greg 3 weeks ago had a massive heart attack. His, what they call the widowmaker, completely blocked, 100%, had a heart attack. He lived, he had a bypass surgery, he's alive. But, it's just amazing, but he's alive. So I look at my life and I go, you know what? I take blood pressure medicine, cholesterol medicine, and all that's doing is masking symptoms. I got to do something different, right? And so I started a lifestyle change in my life. One is manage stress better. I got to manage stress better. 2 is I got to stay off of, Dean Ornish wrote a book, this is a little history for Dean Ornish wrote a book about reversing coronary artery disease. Reversing, not halting, right? Reversing coronary artery disease. And it's by and large, it's from a plant-based diet, right? And so that's what I've started. I've started that now. Now, it takes what? It takes time. If I want to see growth in my life in that area, I want to see my arteries that maybe have blockage in them right now, I want to see them get cleared out. It takes time, right? And it takes faithfulness to see progress in that area of my life. I can't just think, I do it for a day, that didn't help, and go on to something else, right? It's day to day. It is day to day, dependability, right? Day to day, every meal. I think of my meals differently. I think of my meal, like I love to eat. I think, you love to eat. I love to cook and everything. And there's ways for me to go about doing it, but day-to-day dependability, right? I look and I think, hey, first and foremost, what I'm putting in my body is fuel, right? You don't put in your car fuel in your car, gasoline in your car that has water in it, right? You wouldn't do that. That would be dumb, right? That has water in it. It makes your car run bad. You want to put the best fuel you can, hopefully, in your car to make it run well. Well, I think of food as fuel. I want to put the best food in my body for fuel, to fuel my body, to give it the energy that I need. So these those simple day-to-day things are important. Day-to-day dependability. But also, I have to say, this is long-term. This isn't a flash in the pan. This isn't something that I'm going to try for a while. This is what I'm going to do. He says this works. He's proven it through case study after case study after case study in the book, starting from in the 70s all the way up till now. Proven fact, he reverses coronary artery disease. Clogged arteries get opened up by living this lifestyle. Long-term commitment. Long-term commitment. You want to see growth in your life? You pick an area. You pick whatever area you want. You want to see growth in your life in an area, no matter what it is. The key is faithfulness. The key is faithfulness. Faithfulness makes healthy growth possible. Faithfulness also makes healthy relationships possible. You learn how to grow with one another. You learn how to grow. Relationship takes time. You know, both my boys they're dating two sisters, right? Two brothers dating two sisters, and they've been together. Brett and Annie have been together for 7 years. Brock and Shelby together for 2 or 3 years now. You know, and I'm sure I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure they tell each other they love them. They love each other, right? But really, it's an immature love. And I don't mean that disrespectfully or mean or anything, because love takes time, doesn't it? To really grow in love. Because if you read 1 Corinthians 13 about love, and you'll see it's all these action things, and it's patient and kind. And I remember when Michelle and I were we weren't young when we were together, but we were, young in our relationship, right? All those things weren't present, but as you learn, as you grow, right? Listen, I have some lifelong friends. Pete's one of them. You guys know that. 8th grade. My friend Jeff in Florida, the 5th grade. Lifelong friends. And we joke about things all the time, and we pick on each other. We know each other's kind of, hot buttons and stuff like that. We push them and stuff like that. But here's the thing. Like, we know each other. It's our relationship has been tried and tested, right? And we've gone through all kind of stuff together. You know, there is nothing that's gonna get in the way or end a relationship that I have with Pete. Nothing will. Why? Because it's already been tried and tested over years and years and years and years. Same with my friend Jeff, right? And so to build good, healthy relationships, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a friend or whatever, listen, it takes faithfulness. It takes faithfulness. It takes time. I think people are Brent and Annie aren't here, so I could talk about them a little bit. I remember when they were first started to, Annie, was kind of interested in Brent, and Brent said to me one time, he said, Dad, first off, let me tell you about Brent. If Brent is faithful to a fault, and if he makes a friend, it's a friend for life. That's what he does. So he doesn't just throw his friendship around lightly, right? He makes a friend, it's a friend for life. And so when he was thinking about kind of going out with Annie, and he said to me, Dad, what if we start dating, and after a while, I feel like, maybe she's not the one for me. I don't like her anymore. I go, and I know Brent. So I said, is that what you're afraid of, or are you afraid of her saying that? And he got real quiet, because I knew that's what it was. And I said, that's the chance you take. That's the chance you take. And so it's better to chance a broken heart than to go into something half-hearted. Don't you think that's true? Better chance the broken heart than to go into something half-hearted. And so relationships, they just take time. One expert said this: friendship, the way it has been understood throughout history, is nearly extinct in our culture today. Friendship. it was nothing for our, like when I tell people that I have friends from like grade school, they're like, oh yeah, I still keep in contact with. I said, no, like I'm friends with them. I live life with them. It's kind of unheard of today. It's not like, well, yeah, I still, once a year, my friends from, junior high, we get together and we see each other. Now this is like Pete and I, like day to day. I probably a day doesn't go by that I don't talk to Pete. These lifelong friends. It's kind of unheard of. Our parents were different, right? My parents, they had friends from the time they were young throughout all of life. Now I understand, listen, life takes us in all different directions. We, move jobs and all that kind of, I get that. But it's just part and parcel of what I'm talking about our culture. Faithfulness has become something that's just not so anymore. Okay, so faithfulness makes healthy growth, makes healthy relationships possible. The third thing is healthy. It makes healthy impact possible. Do you want to have an impact in your life? Yeah? You want to have impact in your life? You want to have an impact on your kids? Yeah? I want to have impact on my kids. Impact on your friends, in your community, at work. You want to have impact? Well, faithfulness is a key aspect if you really want to have impact. Impact in your family, friends, community, this world. I want you to know something. Your impact that you'll have in your family, with your friends, at work, it's not based on your looks. It's not based on your personality. It's not based on how much money you make. It's not based on any of those things. By and large, the impact that you will make is by your faithfulness. I think of my sister. I think of the impact she has had on her kids, on her children. I know how they talk about her, right? Now, does that mean she wasn't always she was a fun mom, but she wasn't always the fun mom. She was a disciplinarian, right? She was all these kind of things. But I tell you what, she was faithful to them in the day-to-day living and long-term commitment. And she's had an impact on all of their lives. Now, I'm not you choosing her because she's different than anybody else. Hopefully that's you. Hopefully you have lived that way as well. I hope that you have. It's your day-to-day dependability, and it's your long-term commitment. Just think about it for a minute. This is true about everywhere you work. I was telling Brent the other day about, at work. He was telling me different stories at work. Something happened at work, and I go, you know what? Be there. Be dependable. Hey, Brent, we had somebody cough. Can you come in? I can't come in. Yeah, you can count on me. I want to be dependable. I want to be there, right? I want to be there for, Now, I think they know that he's in college. It's he's probably going to be moving on to a different job. But while he's there, he's committed to long term in that sense of, listen, I'm not going to jump around each year from job to job, switch around. Like I'm here. And so consequently, a benefit of doing that is what? Well, they see him. They even know that one day he's going to be leaving, right? He gets promoted. Right? Like, why would you do that? Well, because they can count on him. They can count on him for day-to-day dependability and for that long term. So, it applies to everywhere in life, in your work, in your marriage, in your friendship. It's true about parenting. It's true about our life in the Spirit as well. Just think about this for a minute. Look at the end of life. The end of life. Jesus says, the bottom line, he will commend those for faithfulness. That's what he'll commend you for at the end of life, of being faithful. Faithfulness is the root of all of our impact. In Matthew 25, he says this. Jesus says, well done. How many want to hear that? I mean, just even in life, just living, right? Hey, well done. Great job. And at the end of life, when it's all over, do you want to hear, listen, well done, thou good and faithful servant. You were faithful. Does that mean you were perfect? No. My sister wasn't a perfect. I don't even know what that even means, to be honest with you. Perfect, right? I think sometimes we throw around those words and we think about that, and we try to attain to something that's just like fictitious. Don't forget about perfect. Think about things like these qualities. Think about faithful. Faithful. Well done, my good and faithful servant. Who wants to hear this? You want to hear that? I want to hear it. I want to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. Let's look at a case study. I only got 10 minutes here. Case study in faithfulness, right? So some context here. I'm going to read to you in Hebrews 3. It says this: fix your thoughts on Jesus, because he was faithful to the one who appointed him, just as Moses was faithful in all God's house. So that's the kind of the launching point for what we're going to talk about here. The context of this is this verse is to some early Christians. The writer of Hebrews was writing to these early Christians who were experiencing, it was a terrible time. They were being persecuted. It was difficult being a Christian. We don't even understand that in our day and age. As a matter of fact, we think when political things don't go our way, what's that going to mean for us? Well, it may mean hardship. It may be difficult. So what? So what? If you look back through church history, what you'll find is the church always grew in times of difficulty, times of persecution. So you know what? So it might be hard. Life sometimes gets hard. It's no big deal. Just deal with it. And so the life was hard, and so the writer of Hebrews was writing to these Jewish followers of Jesus, and so he wants to encourage them. And so what he says is, fix your thoughts on Jesus. He was faithful, and then he says, just as Moses was faithful. And so these Jewish believers would know the scripture, and they would go, Moses, we know all about Moses. Hopefully you know about Moses. This brings in our story in Numbers chapter 11. And he's kind of saying, do you remember everything that Moses went through? If you know Moses, he wanted to quit. Absolutely, he wanted to quit. Moses didn't want the job. He did not want the job. Moses didn't feel called, right? He didn't think he heard any kind of call. And so we see that this is actually a quote in Hebrews. This is a quote that we'll see in Numbers chapter 12 when it talks about just as Moses was faithful in all of God's house. Let's dive into the story, because if you feel like quitting right now, right, in anything, this story's for you. If you feel like quitting. If maybe you don't feel like quitting, maybe you're doing good, but maybe you know somebody that's on the verge and they feel like quitting. Or maybe you can be an encouragement to them. Or there may come a time in your future where you just feel like you want out and you want to quit. And maybe this story that we read from Numbers will be an encouragement to you. So in this story, this is after the Egyptian enslavement was over 400 years. God calls Moses to, at the burning bush, you remember that story, to lead the people. And he doesn't want the job. Moses does not want the job. Now he's going to be leading hundreds of thousands of people through the desert to the promised land. That's not going to be easy. So I'm going to go through just real quick some of the things, if you read chapters 11 through 16, some of the things that he faces. So miracle happens, right? They get freed from Egypt. They're free. They're happy. Across the Red Sea, everything's great. And God's providing for them, because what are they going to eat there in the desert? God provides for them manna, right? Provides manna for them. Well, they get tired of eating manna. So the first thing is there's this critical food shortage, and they're tired of how God is feeding them. And so they tell Moses, we're tired of this. You know what we want? We want meat. We want meat. We want melons, and we want vegetables, and we want all this stuff. That's what we want. And so he's facing this food shortage, and he's facing the grumbling of the people. We're tired of this manna. And then that's in chapter 11. Then at the end of chapter 11, there's this confusion over spiritual gifts. And you have to read the story. I don't have time to get into it. I wish I could have read this whole thing to you, but I'm going to trust that you'll go back and read it for yourself. That he has to pick 70 leaders, and 2 of them are prophesying, and then there's this confusion of why are they doing that and all this stuff. And he's like going, I can't believe you people, right? He's just driving him absolutely crazy. And then there's some criticism about his marriage. Right? His own brothers and sisters are giving him a hard time, right? About who he married. He married I can't get into the whole thing, but he married a Cushite. A Cushite was from below Egypt. So Moses married a black-skinned person from Africa, and they were giving him a hard time about this. You read it for yourself. This is his own family. Does that happen today? No, that doesn't happen today, does it? Yeah. Thank God we've outgrown these sorts of things, right? Also, too, he faced discouragement and fear about the future, right? Because Moses sends in the spies. Spies come back, oh, no, we can't get in. There's giants in the land, and they have fortified cities and all this kind of stuff. And so 2 come back and give a different report, and there's grumbling in Numbers 14, death threats in 14, mutiny of leaders. I mean, it's just going on and on and on. How in the world does Moses stay faithful in all? How many would you want to quit? I want out. Are you kidding me? I'm done with these people. I'm absolutely done with them. I want out. And so maybe you're going through something with similar aspects, right? Or maybe you know somebody it is, or maybe you need to tuck this away somewhere for your future when you feel like, I just want out. I've told you time and time again when we were in Africa, there are times when I told Michelle, I want out. I want out. You know, missionaries are great people, but you put a bunch of them together, man, I'll tell you what. But we hung in there, and she helped me to remain faithful. And so let's look at this story, some keys about this story when you want to quit, okay? Number one is this. Number one is, and this is so important, friends, learn to be able to reveal your frustrations to a trusted friend. I'm not talking about going vomiting around everybody around you with all your problems. Not what I'm talking about, right? How many know people like that, right? They're just looking for somebody to get some sympathy from or whatever. So they just start vomiting on everybody, all their problems, telling everybody all their problems. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a trusted friend, a trusted advisor, someone you can go talk to and you can share your frustrations. Watch this. Let me just read to you a little bit. This is Moses talking to who? God. Talking to God. He's sharing his frustration. Hey, how many of you are like me? Some of the times I live in my head. You live in your head, I live in my head, right? I'm thinking all these different kind of things. And oftentimes, when I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking up here, everything sounds so good. Sounds so good. I'm brilliant up here. And then when I tell somebody, share it with somebody, and then I hear myself saying, I go, God, that's dumb. Honestly, I do. I'll share it with somebody. So it's important for me to get it out of my head and out. And so I can hear it. Even more importantly than someone else hearing is that I can hear it. But a trusted friend, right, who can say, like oftentimes I'll go to my friend Jeff, hey, I was thinking this, da-da-da-da. And he'll go, well, did you think of this, and this? And I go, no, I didn't. Well, that makes this pretty dumb. Yeah. Just something else to think about, right? So a trusted advisor, a trusted friend. So he says this, Mrs. Moses, did I conceive all these people? Did I give birth to them? Why do you tell me to carry them on my arms as a nurse carries an infant to the land you promised on oath to their ancestors? He said, where can I get meat for these people? They keep wailing to me. Give us meat to eat. I cannot carry all these people by myself, he says. The burden is too heavy for me. This is him talking to God. This is him getting out all his frustration. And I encourage you to do that to God as well. Get out all your frustrations. He said, I love this part. Listen to this. This is Moses. He cracks me up. He said this, if this is how you're going to treat me, please go ahead and kill me if I have found favor in your eyes. Right? Just kill me. If this is the way it's going to be, just kill me now, Lord. Right? Smite me now. If I find favor in your eyes. He's just being a real smart aleck, isn't he? But at least he's getting it all out. He's getting those frustrations out. Notice something in that, in this. Man, this is all such a good story. I wish I had time to really unpack all this for you. But in here, and notice your own life when you start doing this. He starts using this one phrase 4 times. He uses it. These people, those people, right? Listen, if you ever start talking like that, which I've done many times, if you ever start talking like that, what you're doing is it's us and them. Like us and them. Let you know something. God doesn't have us and them. It's us. It's us. And so he says, these people. Here's what we tend to think, like this. Me, right? I'm productive, hardworking, earnest, important. My God, I'm good. Right? These people, they're lazy, they're complainers, they're fakers, they're dead wood. They're just bad. Right? And that's what we do. That's what we do. You start to villainize them, these people. Then everything they do is suspect. Isn't that true? Then they say something nice about you. Go, oh yeah, I wonder what they want. Right? Because what? You've made them the villain. You set yourself up against them. Now no matter what they say is going to be suspect in your eyes. No matter what, even what good they say will be suspect. And when you say these things to a trusted friend, you'll see them for what they are. Here's what this fights. So I'm going to give you like a key point under each one. This fights the enemy of faithfulness, number 1, and that's self-pity. Don't fall into that. Don't fall into the self-pity. What we tend to do is we tend to maximize our sacrifices, don't we? Our sacrifice, and minimize our blessing or all the good in our life. All right, number 2. Number 2, faithfulness. You need to release my need to control everything. Release your need to control everything. How many of you are control freaks? Don't raise your hand. You know who you are, right? You control freaks out there. Everything's got to be under your control, under your thumb. Everything. Listen, you need to right, be on top of everything. Friends, let me tell you something. It's an illusion anyways. It's an illusion anyways. It's all made up in your head. It does not exist. So the Lord says this. He says to Moses, bring to me 70 of Israel's elders who are known to you as leaders and officials among the people. He doesn't say, I'm going to go get these. He says, listen, you're with them. You know them. You know who they are. Find 70 leaders. And then he says, then I will take some of the power of the Spirit that is on you and put it on them. And they will share the burden of the people with you. So you don't have to carry it alone. Numbers 11, 16, and 17. What's God telling him? God's telling him you have to learn to delegate. Learn to delegate. There are people around you. This is what he's telling Moses, and this is what I'm telling you. There are people around you who will help you. They will. They'll help you. And they'll do it joyfully and willingly. You have to look for them. You have to look for them and find them. And they'll be there to help you. You don't have to do this alone. And then, so Moses calls the 70, so the story, just real quick, 2 of them kind of stay. They're probably brothers. Not 100% sure, but a lot of times, like people do today, they pick, 2 names that rhyme, you know what I mean? Like almost even like Brent and Brock, that sort of thing. And but their names were Eldad and Medad. Eldad and Medad, and they didn't show up, and they stayed in the village, and they were prophesying, right? It said Eldad and Medad were prophesying in the camp. Joshua, son of Nun, right, his advisor to Moses, came to Moses. He was with him since his youth, came to him and spoke up and said, "My Lord, please stop them." I love his reply, Moses' reply. His reply was this. He said, "Are you jealous for my sake?" He said, "I wish that all the Lord's people were prophets, and the Lord would put his spirit on them." On them. Listen, he's saying if God wants to spread his gifts around, so be it. If God wants to do that, that's what he wants to do. What's the principle here? The principle here is don't try to control things that you can't control. Moses, it's not on me. If God wants to do that, God's going to do that. Friends, don't try to control the things that you can't control. He says, "I wish that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put his spirit on them." This fights enemy number 2 to faithfulness, and that's self-effort. That's self-effort. In other words, I feel like I'm responsible for... Have you ever said this? Don't think of your spouse. Have you ever said this? Am I the only one that does X around here? Anybody? I know I say it. I'm the only one. I'm the only one that does this. No one else. Listen, when you hear yourself talking like that, like if someone else says that, I would go, "Really? You're the only one?" I always joke with Michelle. We always said, "I always, you never." Really, always and never. I always, you never. And it's this idea of self-effort. So Connie and Pete and I and Michelle were talking about with our kids. This is Pete and I. This is our fault. This is our bad quality, right? Ask our kids to do something, and if they don't do it right then and there, right when I want, what does Pete do? He does it himself. I do the same thing. I go do it. I'll go do it myself. Hey, will you go get the dogs? Yeah, in a minute. I'll just do it myself. I go out and do it. I want to do it right away, right? And then it's this whole thing like, I do everything around here. I'm the only one. It's this self-pity. Well, you set up yourself, right? And this self-pity, this, oh, woe is me sort of thing, right? And so, okay, let's move on. I have to finish this. I want the band come up. I'll go through these last ones real quick. 3 is focus on God's work instead of my work. It's an important perspective shift, right? So what happens is I love this because God uses in this story, God uses this kind of a counseling, a real, what's the word I'm looking for? Just a really, really good counseling technique. And what he says is this. Just real quick, I'll just paraphrase. What he says is this. He goes, Moses, you're right. These people, they're lousy. They're good for nothing, right? And they're terrible. You know what? I'm gonna kill them all. I'm just gonna get rid of them all. And we're gonna start a new nation. It's gonna be a nation of Moses. So go read it for yourself, right? No more the nation of Israel, it's going to be the nation of Moses. And Moses starts going, wait a minute, God. Right? I don't think that's such a good idea, because if you do that, then the the people in Egypt, they're going to say, oh, God brought them out of Egypt, but then he can't deal with them, and so he kills them all, and that's not going to look good for you. And God's there going, you think so, Moses? Oh, okay, yeah, maybe you're right? And so, focus on God's work instead of my work. And what this does, this fights the enemy of selfish ambition. And the last thing is, and that's part of this song, and I'm just going to let the song kind of speak for itself, but remember God's faithfulness to me. So later on, Moses writes sort of this poem. Let me read it to you. He says this. He says, I will proclaim the name of the Lord. Oh, praise the greatness of our God. He is the rock. He is perfect in all his ways, and all his ways are just. A faithful God who does no wrong, upright and just is he. And then in Psalm, the last thing I'm going to read is this. In Psalm 91, which which a lot of scholars believe that he wrote 90. We know that. A lot of scholars believe he also wrote 91. And he writes this, and he uses two sort of metaphors here for God. He said, he will cover you with his feathers. It's this idea of a mother hen. You know that God is referred to very, very often in the Bible with female characteristics. Did you know that? Female characteristics. One time I talked about it here. I did a funeral. I talked about the female characteristics of God, and a pastor was here, and afterwards he said to me, well, that was really good, Jeff, but you know God is male. I mean, it's clear. I did a study, and God's male. I go, wow, that's just amazing to me. It just blows my mind the way, anyways. So he says this, he will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and your rampart. And lastly, this fights the enemy of self-focus. I'm just focusing on myself. Friends, remember this. I'll leave you with this scripture. Hebrews chapter 3. Fix your eyes on Jesus, because he's faithful. Fix your eyes on Jesus, because he's faithful. Friends, I hope that if you needed this message today, I hope it does wonders for you in your life. If not, for today, I hope that you'll remember it and you'll tuck it away for the day that you need it. Thank you. Hey, Lydia.